Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this production by Pace Journal. Of course, I'm your host, Nikhil Uttamchandani, and joined by the world-renowned fast bowler Tymal Mills himself. Always a pleasure to have you, Tymal. This, of course, guys, is the Pace Journal preview and review show. Today, we're going to be looking at a very controversial third test between India and England. I know Tymal knows both sides very well. And wow, that's seriously some cricket. The first time ever in my lifetime I've seen a test match finish inside 2 days. I'm sure Tymal's seen many, him being so much older than me. But Tymal Mills, tell me about that in terms of what first of all, what was your reaction to the test finishing in 2 days?
Welcome to the Pace Journal. To the Pace Journal.
It was interesting, wasn't it? I don't think there's been a lot spoken about the test match. Lots of obviously in the media, former players, pundits, all talking about the pitch in particular. But I don't think anybody can deny the fact that it was entertaining cricket. There was stuff going on for the whole test match. It was. I personally enjoyed watching it. It was a shame that the game obviously only lasted 2 days. There's lots of people that just want to be watching cricket, don't they? And you plan for 5 days of watching cricket, so then after two for it to be done is disappointing. But yeah, look, there's lots for us to talk about, to chop up, to get into. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into a bit in a lot more depth. But yeah, it was an interesting and entertaining test match for sure.
Yes, and just before we get to that scorecard. I actually, for the English fans out there, I'm sure I'm feeling your pain, because I actually spoke to some English fans who were really looking forward to the test series, and they said, what am I going to watch this weekend? Because obviously with the test being a day-nighter, it opened up the window for that 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. all-day cricket. And unfortunately, well, I guess that's just y'all's luck, but we'll have to see if England can bounce back. Let's look at the scorecard. Obviously, England off to a pretty good start, with Zach Crawley. He got 50, and then it looked like lottery numbers from there on in. Bowled up for 112. Aksar Patel, 10 wickets in the match, and of course, Rohit Sharma, 66. Tymal, before we even break this down, obviously a renowned victory for India, and they take a 2-1 lead in this series. Before we even get to that, you would have watched it keenly, this test. Was it bad batting or a bad pitch?
I think both is probably the right answer.
Don't take the easy way out, man. Don't take the easy way out.
But look, I think I'd go more on the side of bad batting by both teams. There was some very skilled bowling on show. The main problem, obviously I'm not a batter or a spin bowler, but from what I'm listening to all that everybody says, that the main issue was that it was very inconsistent, whether some balls were turning big and then some balls were going on straight. I think it was like 18 of the 21 wickets, I think I might have got that wrong, taken by the spin bowlers were the balls that just went straight on. But then obviously the previous deliveries were spinning big, and then that caused the batsmen to have indecision, and there was guys getting bowled through the gate, getting hit on the pad when the balls just didn't spin. So I think a lot of the guys would look back and think it was bad batting. I'm sure they'll look at their dismissals. Maybe it's one of those, especially in the second innings, when everything's already happened in the game, and you're in the fourth innings, you're in the third innings, you're kind of defeated a little bit before you go out there, and it takes someone that's really strong of mind to get over that, I think, sometimes, and that can be a difficult place to be when you're out in the middle in Test match cricket. To be forced to try and make adjustments to your technique, to how you like to approach the game, those are really difficult situations to find yourself in. And a lot of the time, guys just aren't able to adapt, and they try and go ultra defensive or ultra attacking or whatever it is. They stray away from what they normally do, and then that ends up being their downfall because they're not used to doing it over and over again. So obviously this game played more into the hands of the Indians because they're more used to being in those situations than what the English batters are. Obviously we don't get pitches like that in England. Don't even get a lot of turning pitches at all, even in county cricket. So it was very alien for those guys. But I know Virat Kohli said that he said, look, both teams batted poorly. We just kind of batted less poorly. That was ultimately what he was getting at, I saw from his conference. So yeah, as I said, I think a lot of the batsmen will come away disappointed with maybe. Look, it's one of those. If you score 40 on that wicket in the second innings, that's worth 100, really, isn't it? The way that it was, and again, I'm just looking at the scorecard now. England in their second innings, only 3 players over 12. That's obviously not great, not great going, especially. And then India came out and they knocked off the runs. Rohit Sharma went a run a ball, didn't he? And Shubman Gill looked pretty comfortable as well. So there was there was runs to be had there if you were able to score them, and it was just a case of applying and kind of trying to soak up and combat any pressure that was building up.
Yeah, my question to you is, obviously you outlined the straight balls getting the batsman out, which was a big surprise. But do you think it was a case of the batsmen playing for the ball to spin, given that they saw footholes and dust on the surface on day one? That's something that no one's ever used to seeing in Test cricket. So would you say that had a factor to play in that indecision for the batsmen to then looking to play for the spin and then being bamboozled by the balls that were straight?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think it's tough when you say a ball pitches in and around your middle and off stump, you press forward to it and the ball sharply spins past you. It's theatre, isn't it? All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like something's happening. This is
next one, yeah.
this is kind of the next level. And all the batsmen around the bat, I'm sure Rishabh Pant behind the stumps is giving a lot of chat, and it's theatre. And then all of a sudden it's not your usual kind of slow-paced Test cricket, if that makes sense. You don't get in a rhythm of doing the same thing over and over again, and you find yourself having to do something a little bit out of what you're normally used to doing, like I said. So then you start to play for stuff that maybe isn't there. There was a lot of chat about the pink ball as well. It was harder to see the seam and the rotations of when the bowlers were delivering the ball, so they weren't quite sure if they could see if the seam was a bit more upright, it was going to turn, or if it was going to hit the lacquer and skid on. But yeah, there was a lot going on, and it obviously was the downfall mainly of the English batters.
This beautiful game of cricket, man. So many mechanisms, so many characteristics which depend on a game. Now, I'm just going to give you a comment in terms of Ravi Ashwin. That's a big talking point in terms of the press and media. He stated in a press conference, how do we define a good pitch? Because obviously there's been a lot of backlash, especially from the fans, English fans who would say, to the pitch being not suitable. Here's my take on it, right, Tymal? And I would say, having listened to Ashwin's comments, I do think he has a point in terms of saying, how do we define that good pitch? Now, I would have tweeted out when I was watching that game, seeing the game end so early, I actually tweeted, because I've seen it with my own eyes in the Caribbean. When we produce surfaces like that, which sometimes the games don't last long or they're not great surfaces, but as he's saying, how do we define good surfaces? The venues in the Caribbean have been given demerit points. So my thinking was, now I understand where Ashwin's point's coming from. How do we define that? But if we're going on historical stats and what's happened in the past, my thing was that I thought, it wasn't suitable since we are used to seeing grounds and venues get demerit points when they're not able to produce pitches that can bring all 4 facets into play. Now, Ashwin's take on it is that there's no such thing as a good or a bad ground or a good or bad pitch, and the batsmen need to apply themselves more. I completely understand where he's coming from. The only way I see it is just going on history. We can't just change history all of a sudden. But as I said, it's a very controversial take, and I'm sure everybody has their own opinion. And I hope for all of our sakes, in the 4th test, we could actually see 5 days, because it's a very important test for both teams. India need to win or draw the game to get to the World Test Championship final. If they don't, well, then now it's very interesting between India, England, and Australia. Tymal, moving on from that, the pitch, obviously, because, that we could talk about that for hours. This is a fast bowling show. And we had really hyped up the fast bowling of both teams going into this game. Obviously, being a day-nighter, we know Ravi Ashwin didn't have much of an impact. And it's really been the Pacers dominating day-night tests in the past. However, 38 of 140 overs were only bowled by the seamers. First of all, was this sort of a surprise to you? And secondly, what do you think were some of the factors? Obviously, I know it's the pitch, but what were some of the other factors you thought why the seamers weren't able to be effective?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a surprise. I think a lot of the chat in the media, the players were all saying, I know Ben Stokes did an interview saying, Anderson, Broad, Archer are all licking their lips at, the pink ball under the lights. I spoke about it on our last show, all the other, previews and media shows that people were talking about. Okay, this is, even looking back at the start of the series, people were talking about this day-night test match as, probably England will be favourites, because the previous day-night test match to happen in Kolkata against Bangladesh was just dominated by the pace bowlers, wasn't it? It was bouncing, it was seaming, it was swinging. So everybody's talking about it. Okay, pink ball. And apparently all the training games all the net sessions and training sessions that the England players had around the test match, the ball was, doing all sorts. So all the chat was, this was going to be England's test match, and then you get to the toss. England play one spinner, and India play three, and you're thinking, okay, one team's probably got it wrong here. And it turned out, obviously, India knew exactly what the pitch was going to do. It was very dusty day one. England won the toss and batted, which is obviously an advantage to them on a pitch like that. They thought batting second on, they were looking towards the end of the game. Batting last on that pitch could potentially be tricky if it is going to spin. And that first hour, it was when it was facing the pace bowling. Zach Crawley played some beautiful shots, didn't he? 53 off 84, so that's a good strike rate in Test cricket. And some of the shots he played off Bumrah and Ishant Sharma, you thought, okay, this looks a good wicket, doesn't it? And then, as you say, the second the spin bowlers came on, that was pretty much all you saw from pace bowling for the rest of the game for a large majority of it. So it was surprising in terms of the pre-match talk. We thought, okay, pink ball under lights, let's go. But it wasn't to be the case. It was, as you say, spin from very early. The pitch was very dusty, very dry. And as you said, the fast bowlers really struggled to have any impact at all. I watched the start of the game. Ishant Sharma, I think his first ball really carried through nicely, and you think, okay, he's a bit in the wicket. And then I think a couple of balls later, it died a bit, and then there wasn't really any swing. So even with a brand new ball, it wasn't doing much. And then obviously, I'm just looking again. Bumrah bowled 6 overs and Ishant Sharma bowled 5 overs to start the game. So it's decent. It wasn't like they went straight to spin. The 11th over. And then after that, Akshar Patel and Ravi Ashwin just bowled then for the rest of the game pretty much.
Just a quick question for you, Tymal. And obviously, based on your comments, Joe Root actually said in his interview, he said, if I can get 5 wickets on a surface, then I think it could all tell you. But I mean, he did bowl well. I will give him credit. Now, I want to ask you about the ball, especially, not this ball, obviously, the pink SG ball. This is a brand new ball being used, obviously, in this series. And many people, we don't know what to expect, really. This is the first time we're seeing it. How big of a part do you think that had to play on, what sort of pace the bowlers were able to extract and what the conditions really, offered? How much of the ball does it have an impact? We always see captains picking the ball, taking a strategic decision. For those out there that don't know, tell us.
Yeah, I think with this ball in particular, look, I've not played with the pink SG ball. I've played with pink Kookaburra balls, pink Dukes balls in England. But apparently with the pink SG ball, the problem I mentioned earlier was the seam. The guys were struggling to see the revolutions on the ball, to see at what angle the ball was spinning. Sorry, the seam was coming down at, to get an idea. Is that the off spinner, the carom ball, whatever. If you're not picking out the hand, whereas on a white ball as you have in your hand now, there's a bit more of a clearer difference between the seam and the ball. But on this pink SG ball, I think it was like a black seam on the pink ball. Then once you get kind of some dirt on there, the pitch, a bit of wear and tear, it's very hard to distinguish what's going on. So I think that was probably the big issue. I think that the ball also is coated in extra lacquer, so it stays that bit harder for a little bit longer. Akshar Patel, when he bowls, if he hits that kind of the shiny side, the harder side of the ball, those are the balls that were skidding on. And then obviously when you hit the seam, you get more purchase and it spins. So the ball definitely did have a part to play, and it'll be interesting. We'll talk about it when we preview the next show in a few days' time. The next test in a few days' time, when you go back to the red ball and a normal hour test match, how that differs, who's that going to favour moving forward. But you're right, obviously Joe Root, he tried to make light of it, didn't he, saying obviously if he can get a fifer on it, then anybody could. But he did run through the latter half of the Indian batting lineup, didn't he? He bowled some nice balls. There was some big spin there for him as well, so might see a little bit more of him in the fourth test as well.
Yeah, for those wondering why the ball is so beaten up, I took about 10 wickets, bowling 90 miles per hour. I gotta keep the ball. No, I'm just kidding, man. But yes, great points there. And actually, continuing on the vein of spin and fast bowling, family, don't get too upset, because we love talking about fast bowling, but obviously there's only so much we can talk about with only being 38 overs of pace. But I want to ask you about this left arm spin deficiency that England seem to have. Now, obviously, they've obviously lost more wickets in a 2-year span to the right arm off break bowler. When you think of who they faced, Nathan Lyon, Ravi Ashwin. But there is also a problem to the left arm spin, Tymal. And actually, that's why India brought in the likes of Akshar Patel and Shabaz Nadeem into this series. Over the last 2 years, dating back to that 2019 series when England came to the West Indies, they've lost 43 wickets at an average of 32.79 and a 64.79 strike rate. Obviously, Dom Sibley is he's been dismissed the most by left arm spin, and that's 6 times. Obviously, Akshar Patel getting 10 wickets in this last game. Do you see it as a weakness to left arm spin by this England team? Or do you think it's just good bowling by India and other teams that have left arm spinners, that have played England in the past?
Look, again, sorry to cop out, but probably both. And obviously a lot was made, wasn't it, when Kevin Peterson had a problem with left arm spin, didn't he? And obviously, if you're a right-handed batter, facing a left-arm spinner is obviously going to be more difficult, isn't it? Because they have the ability to turn the ball away from the bat and then also to bring the stumps into play with the straighter balls, which is obviously what we've spoken about, which happened a lot in this Test match. And obviously, more often than not, you're going to have more right-handed batters in your team. And there's something I've spoken about when people talk about why left-arm fast bowlers are more effective in white ball cricket. I think. Mm-hmm. It's relevant in this scenario as well, because just growing up, you naturally end up facing more right-arm bowlers, don't you? You imagine when you're a little kid, chances are, because there are more right-handed people in the world, than there are left-handed people. So chances are when you're growing up, your mum, your dad, your uncle, whoever is giving you some throws or some bowling at you in the garden, or your brother or your sister, whoever you're playing with, chances are they'll be bowling right arm over at you. When you start playing club cricket, chances are you'll be facing more right arm over bowling than you will be left arm over. When you've got the bowling machine set up when you're growing up, chances are it will be set at right arm over. Do you know what I mean? So going back years and years and years from the moment you've played cricket, you've just naturally been facing one type of bowling more than you have been another. So couple that with the fact that in England, you don't face an awful amount of high quality spin bowling due to the wickets, due to the times of the year that the 4-day cricket is played in England, kind of at the start and at the end of the year, especially at the start. We play the majority of it in the first kind of 8 to 10 weeks of the season when the pitch is, the weather's a bit colder. It's more inclined to to seam and to swing. You don't get a lot of spin bowling. So there isn't a lot of opportunity to face high quality spin bowling because it's not being produced, and it's not the most effective, tactic available. It's not the meta, to put a gaming term out there, but it's difficult. I think, Zach Crawley, he's obviously been out a few times to left arm spin now. Akshar Patel, and I think Mboldinia, apologies, I forget his name, on the Sri Lankan left arm spinner. He got him as well in the recent Test matches there. But look, it's something you can work on, isn't it? You can practice it. These guys now, obviously, you're playing Test match cricket for England. If you get found out with a problem, you'll often see, if a guy gets found out he's poor against the bouncer, he knows you're going to get a lot of bouncers. You can practice it, can't you? You can get in the nets with the coach and you can work on it, and you can find methods. You can speak to each other. You can talk to guys, former players. England have got a great support network around them. I don't know if you saw during the Sri Lanka tests, I think it was Kevin Peterson tweeted out this letter that Rahul Dravid had written him, the email that about playing how to play spin. And Peterson, you could ask what his intentions were when he did that, but he put it out there for Sibley and Crawley to read, I think he said. And, I read it. It was interesting stuff. Obviously, I'm not a batter or a spin bowler, but it was interesting. So there's unlimited amount of resources out there for these guys if they do have a problem. And it's certainly going to get tested again in next week's Test match.
For sure. I think it's something that the Indians will definitely exploit. And guys, this is fantastic insight. Honestly, I think, not to be biased or anything, but if you know friends that are not watching this show, you guys need to send this to them and get them on. Tymal Mills, we have to get him in a commentary box. I hope I can be commentating next to him one day alongside him, because the insight, I think he should be on Sky Sports in their third man seat, because he's phenomenal, man. He's phenomenal. Tymal, thank you so much. And just before we even wrap it up, I just want to let the viewers know that, unfortunately, our predictions are now finished. We both predicted 2-1 to England, and clearly that is not, that's not happening. We will predict what we think will happen in the 4th test very soon when we do preview that 4th test. But guys, for now, that's been the 3rd test preview. Obviously, the Pace Journal show. Tymal Mills has joined me. I'm Nikhil Uttamchandani. Thank you so much all for watching. Tymal, we'll be back very soon with that 4th test preview.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Welcome to the Peace Judge. Peace Judge. Welcome to the Peace Judge. Peace Judge.